Hey, welcome back into Weekend Joe, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura, Munganass Alton Toyota here on ClaibsOnline.com. Talk a little baseball. Second half of the season in full swing. Trade deadline has passed, so we welcome in friend of the show, Matt Snyder. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, hanging in there, living the dream, same old.
Yeah, did you get? We ran into each other in Los Angeles during the All-Star Week festivities. What was your biggest takeaway from that weekend?
Oh, well, a takeaway is tough because, it's just usually fun. I think it was all catered to the audience here. A lot of fun seeing Pujols get to the finals. And I almost think that everybody thought Schwarber was going to beat him so bad, and Pujols' number was low enough in the first round. It almost seemed like Schwarber kind of didn't want to embarrass him at first, and then like 30 seconds to a minute in, he was like, uh-oh, I don't know if I can even get there now. And then he was like desperately trying to catch up. The Julio showing was great. All-Star game itself, unfortunately, probably one of the more boring ones in a while, other than the Stanton and Buxton home runs back to back. And then I cannot stand the Dodger Stadium parking lot. I guess those are the biggest ones, but the latter is evergreen. That's every single time I go there. And it was funny. I was sitting on the shuttle back to the hotel after the All-Star game, and I was looking up, and I'm usually like, man, I really don't want to come back here. And then this time I was like, not only do I really not want to come back here, but I think I'm going to be back here in late October.
So I parked in Chinatown and I walked.
It makes sense because then you can walk past everything and then kind of skip.
And I even had, I had some people that are like, hey, like, do you want me to give you a ride? And I'm like, honestly, I was like, I'm going to get there quicker than you will. Like,
Absolutely.
you're in the parking lot. Like, I will walk a mile and get there faster than you will to get down
veteran. There. How much have you actually been there?
That was my second time.
Okay,
the first time was
that's a veteran move for it being only your second time.
the first time I was there was the wild card game last year, and they had the media parking lots on the lower level. So
yeah, that's not going to do you any good. Well, especially. Here's the thing, and I'll go to bat for Dodgers fans now that you know what I'm talking about. Everybody likes to rail on them for the late arriving, early leaving crowds. But once you've seen how much of a hellhole that parking lot is, you can't blame those people if the game looks like it's in hand or if it looks like they're not going to come back in like the seventh inning and be like, let's get the hell out of here before we have to wait 2 hours in the parking lot. You can't blame them. Now, your experience on the wild card would be similar to home run derby, where everybody's leaving at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like, there's really no way to leave early unless you're going to miss the good stuff. With the wild card game going down to the wire like that, it's a playoff game. It's do or die. Everybody's going to stay there till the end. So everybody left at the exact same time. Unless you run and get your car first, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I guess it's a classic stadium. It's been up for 60 years, 60, 70 years, close to that. But it's just one of those where you go there and you see the picturesque views of the outfield, and it's a great view of all of that.
When we walk in behind home plate, which are up at the very top, it's gorgeous. Yeah. One of the best views. It's up there with like San Francisco and Pittsburgh with the best views in baseball. Other than that, I just can't.
Right, there's just nothing around it. Like that's what number?
It's just parking lot.
What number stadium was Dodgers? Are you at right now?
22.
Okay.
I wish it was higher. I'm still mad at the Rangers for rebuilding their ballpark after the 2011 World Series. It's cost me a number. But I feel like I've hit almost all the good ones, except that I just mentioned one of them, Pittsburgh. I still have not gotten to PNC, and I hate myself for that.
And that's, with your job and everything, unless the All-Star game is going to be there, you're not going there for any kind of playoff stuff. It can't be that far of a drive for you, though, right?
Cleveland would take 4.5 to 5 hours, and it'd be a little bit further than that. Probably an hour and a half past Cleveland.
Yeah.
So not too bad. In hindsight, I kind of wish when they were good in like 2015 and 2016, at some point I would have just said, hey, let me drive over there for that Reds Pirates wild card game. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I'm at
In
15
14.
now. I reached the halfway point last week, going up to Toronto at the Rogers Center and going there for those.
How is
For the,
that? I haven't been. That's one of them I haven't been to.
it's what, 30 years old.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I
it's
liked it.
one of the last ones before the Camden Revolution.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's built into a hotel. Like, you can see the hotel rooms there on
yeah,
the scoreboard. If you're sitting on the first base side, you look straight up. The CN Tower's up there. It is pretty cool the way, and they have the flashing lights now in there too for the home runs and everything. So they have made
cool.
upgrades into the stadium. And you know what? You walk around Toronto and everybody there is wearing Blue Jay stuff. They are all in on that
I'm a
young
big
team right
fan
now.
of I'm a big fan of when it's like, and that's a regular season.
Yeah,
But during the World Series, I always like, one of my favorite things is to walk around and seeing all the locals like so into the local team. And unfortunately, well, I will say LA, it is major Dodgers. It's a Dodgers town. You see Dodger stuff all over the place, but it's so
LA
sprawling.
tattoos on people's faces all over.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But it's so sprawling and it's so huge. And like you said, there's nothing else around Dodger Stadium. I was thinking, like, one of the things about the World Series, again, the time's different. So I'm used to going to lunch and then going to the ballpark. In LA, it's like 9 a.m. So you go to breakfast and go to the ballpark, and you're so far away from the stadium. It's not as much of a local feel. Yeah, I think back to like 2011, 2013, when I would go out to lunch in St. Louis, everything was Cardinals.
yeah.
Everything. Everybody's talking about it around you. Last year, I remember before I walked to Truist Park before the Braves Astros World Series, and I sat down and had lunch. The place was full. Everybody had Braves stuff on. Everybody's talking about the Braves. I really love that aspect of it, and you do miss kind of a lot of that when in LA because Dodger Stadium's so far out there and there's nothing else around it.
No, there really isn't. But yeah, it was a good ball. Fun time out there. Toronto, if you ever make it up there, it's a nice ballpark up that way.
Nice.
I still got to say, Coors, I want to say is my number one.
It's
That
up there.
Yeah,
It's really good and underrated. Like, you
yeah.
don't I mentioned PNC and San Francisco. What is it now? It's not Oracle. Yeah,
Is
Oracle
it
in San
Oracle?
Francisco. Oracle. A lot of people mention those. A lot of people mention Fenway and Wrigley as like the legacy ones. Coors it's underrated. It's great. Yeah.
And there's stuff to do around
Yeah.
there. So that's
They
I
built
think
up
that's
that whole, I think
yeah,
they call it Lodo, which is just lower downtown, but they call
yeah.
it Lodo. They built up that whole area around it. It's awesome. Yeah.
One of my favorite tweets that I saw over the week, last week for the Blue Jays and Cardinal game was that fans must have been really confused when they saw Adam Wainwright and Albert Pujols playing, and it wasn't Albert Pujols Jr. and Adam Wainwright Jr. Toronto Blue Jays fans probably really confused at the fact that players still can play and it's not their sons
Oh, yeah.
that are out there,
Give me a second.
as opposed to half of the Blue Jays roster that appears
Yeah.
to be former sons of former players. But hey, you know what? You got to see Albert and having fun at the home run derby, and we saw him on his little tear prior to the All-Star break, and now starting back up afterwards. I mean, as far as free agent signings go, it wasn't much money, and I
Yeah.
think that Albert has maybe overperformed what he was expected to be this year.
Probably. I mean, I think there was always the concern, and I think I remembered right when he re-signed, they had me come on CBS Sports HQ, our video stream, and they were like, "Well, how's this going to end?" And I was like, "Well, hopefully it ends kind of how it's going now, with him having a pretty good season, mostly off the bench, hitting some home runs. I think, what was he, 19, 21 away from 700?
Close, yeah. I'd have to see
Something
where
around
he's
there.
at right now. Yeah,
Um, and I said, hopefully he gets to that. Ideally, ends up with like 700. He hits number 700. That would be late in the year, obviously. But I was like, on the other end of the spectrum, there is the chance that he's just brutal, and Mo has to come to grips with either carrying a guy on the roster who is dead weight or having to go to Albert and have a conversation and
yeah.
saying, "Man, we kind of need that roster spot. What do you think?" Fortunately, he's hit, as you said, he's hit well enough that it's not really a conversation, and he's going to be able to ride the year out. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, or an injury going on the IL for a stint, like we just saw with Molina, who was on there for what 9 weeks almost, or
Yeah,
I
but
guess 8. I
if
mean,
anything, that'll save his body and get him to the end of the year.
right, and that would be something like that
Yeah,
where you just put him on an injury and you just have him
yeah.
go away that way instead of cutting him for that. And it's funny you mentioned that because for so long, for the last I guess 2 seasons, that was kind of a concern with Matt Carpenter with the Cardinals. Was God, are they going to have to cut him? Like, how bad is this going to look? Former MVP candidate, and now Matt Carpenter comes back into St. Louis this weekend as this new Bronx hero in New York. He goes to the Yankees, shaves the beard, has the mustache, and now 15 home runs in that Yankees lineup. Just incredible season that the Yankees are having. And you and I were talking before we went on I didn't 15 home runs. I didn't even realize it was up that high.
115 at bats, 15 bombs and 115 at bats. Ridiculous. 791 slugging percentage. If you're into this sort of thing, 242 OPS plus. So 142% better than league average OPS.
Yeah. I mean, it just all the numbers that you look at, and the average 322 average that he has.
To put it
If
in
he
perspective, obviously not near the playing time,
no,
but he has way better rate stats than Aaron Judge.
yeah, if he would have, if you would have told me that if you would have brought Matt Carpenter back to the Cardinals this year and said, hey, he'll hit 222 this year and have 15 home runs by the first week of August, I'd be like, wow, that'd be quite a resurgence for him. Yeah. And the fact that he's hitting 322 in only 43 games in that time with 15 home runs, it's
and the 43 games, that's kind of misleading too, because a lot of it early was just like one pinch hit appearance per game. Like it's not even a full, not at 43 games, not even a full slate of plate appearances.
Yeah.
It's been like part-time for a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's unreal what they have gone out and they have done with him. But Aaron Judge, do you think what do you think he ends up with home run wise? Where do you think we see him cool off at all? Because if anything, he's heated up.
Yeah, he has for a second. I think there'll be ebbs and flows there. I mean, we've all seen it with so many big time power hitters. There was a lull kind of before the All-Star break, and then he got really, really hot again. So I think it'll probably go like that again. He'll have a lull, then he'll get really hot. High 50s, we'll go like 59. Surely
Really?
the baseball gods aren't going to punish people like me and not this much and have him hit between 61 and 73, right? They're not going to do that and have to deal with all those. I mean, here's an example of what I'm talking about. When I posted that Judge was when he got to 40 home runs before the end of August, it was one of like 8 guys in history who had done that. And I included on the list Bonds, McGuire, Sosa. I get like 5 people right away tweeting me that they don't count. And I'm like, well, they do. You don't get to just say, no, they don't count. They actually got to 40 home runs before the end of July, and their seasons haven't been expunged by the commissioner, so they count. And so, man, those there would be a lot of consternation if he ended up with like 63 home runs, as you know.
I know. Yeah, he is. And you know what? It's gonna be real hot in St. Louis this weekend. That ball's gonna fly.
Well, so he'll get up to what 45 at least, then probably.
You know what? As long as the Cardinals can end up winning 2 of the 3, I'm fine with that. If I could see a Judge,
you might get to see a show. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get maybe it'll be something like the Angels last night, where they set the major league record for home runs in a loss.
I mean, is it not like Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, like, has there ever been a bigger waste of talent in all of professional sports than what you're seeing with those two right there? It is unreal. 7 home runs and they still cannot win a game.
Surely I'd have to look at this, but if you went back to when there was only one pennant winner per league, well, there is still only one pennant winner. I mean, when there were no playoffs and they just went straight to the World Series with the 2 pennant winners, surely we could find something like if Ted Williams and Jimmy Fox overlapped on the Red Sox at all. Surely you could find something like that. But with this many playoff teams, I don't know, man. And I know I talk about this a lot, and it annoys me when people act like, well, if they're so good, their team should make the playoffs. Well, this isn't basketball where one guy can dominate the ball and then guard the best player on the other team. It's still each individual is 1 out of 9. One individual can only do so much. It just seems like the front office should really be better at putting guys around those two. And if he's healthy, Anthony Rendon as well.
As the trade deadline just passed, and there were rumors out there that Shohei was on the trade block, and I was shocked to see that the Cardinals were the front runner for a move like that. We saw what it took to get Juan Soto, a generational talent, a 23-year-old hitter. Where do you even begin with somebody with the tools of a Shohei Ohtani, with the pitching and hitting? That's
the only, especially as little money as he makes, he is hitting free agency after next year, so that's a mitigating circumstance. He's 27, so 4 years older than Juan Soto, but 27 is still prime age. There has to be a concern that his arm is going to break again because he's a pitcher. But man, you're talking about, it's essentially two players. You'd be talking about trading for an MVP candidate as a hitter and a Cy Young candidate as a pitcher. So that, whatever kind of package that would take, I don't know. I don't think anybody would give it up. I wouldn't blame the Angels for trying to look for that. I also don't blame Artie Moreno for stepping in and saying, hold on, you're not doing that, because for better or worse, and it is annoying because we'd like to see them win, for the rest of this season, they're probably selling a lot of tickets just because of Shohei Ohtani.
Man.
And if you're Moreno, you're going, hold on. If you trade him, I don't have a draw the rest of the year. Right. Even if Trout comes back, because they've had Trout for so many years, they're not going anywhere. Ohtani's their draw right now.
Yeah, especially on days he pitches too. I mean, people are showing up to watch the amazing pitcher hitter in 2022. Going back to the Soto trade, we saw how much the Padres gave up. I'm sure you read and saw how much the Cardinals were being asked for. In the end, do you think it was a good move of the Cardinals not giving up Carlson, Gorman, and the likes of that to go and get Juan Soto?
Nah, not necessarily. I probably would have gone for it. I understand where they were, in that if you're trading a big chunk of your position players when you're already strong at position player and you need pitching more than anything else, I understand the mindset. I also think that Juan Soto is the type of guy that you throw the rule book out. It reminds me of the story about when Bobby Knight coached Michael Jordan in the '84 Olympics, and then before the draft, he went to. It might be an urban legend, but I think the point stands. He went to Portland and said, "You need to draft this guy," and they said, "Well, we need a center." And Knight said, "Then play him at center." I think Soto is not Michael Jordan, but he is a generational talent. He is probably going to be a Hall of Famer, and he's only 23.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get lost on the prospect talk, is when you're talking about prospect packages, sometimes these guys are 23 years old. He's already 20. He's already only 23.
Right.
He's already established as one of the best players in the league. He already has an MVP runner-up. He already has a ring. 2.5 years from free agency, there was probably the conundrum for Mo, because they're really good at extending their guy. If Arenado doesn't opt out, you've got the Goldschmidt deal. Would you be able to extend Soto? If you can't extend him, would you be able to bring him back in free agency? I'm sure those were all matters of discussion within the front office. And like I said, I don't blame him. I would probably have been more aggressive, but he's the general manager / team president of a team that's in contention every single year at a small market. So he knows what he's doing. And like I said, I understand it.
So right now, do you put are the Padres your team to beat, or is it still the Dodgers and Yankees running away with things?
The Dodgers are better. And I talked about this the other night too, right after Soto's debut, when they crushed the Rockies 9-1. And by the way, the coolest moment was Brandon Drury's grand slam.
So I've told you this before. My kid, a huge Padres fan,
Yeah,
and
he's a Tatis.
he stayed up. Yeah, he stayed up to watch that, and I thought the neighbors were going to get called when Drury hit that grand slam in the
Well,
first
that's
inning.
awesome, man.
He
That's
was
really cool.
screaming so much.
Here's the thing. What Soto does for that lineup, he took the walk. He was the catalyst. Machado doubles right after that. Then they're in trouble. Josh Bell, another guy who's going to lengthen the lineup a lot. The Bell and Drury additions were really important. Not as important as Soto, but were really important. When they get Tatis back, that's a really good lineup. The rotation, Clevenger and Snell are going really well right now. Put that with Musgrove and Darvish. Now they have Hader at the back end of the bullpen. That's the type of team that could go to the World Series and could win the World Series. Now, the Dodgers are better. Like I said, the Mets, if DeGrom and Scherzer are firing on all cylinders, might be better, especially with as good as Diaz is at the end of the bullpen. Not as dynamic of a lineup as the Padres and Dodgers, or Dodgers potentially have. They still need like Muncy and Bellinger to kind of put it together. But it's the Braves last year were the worst team in the National League that made the playoffs, including the Cardinals, a wild card, and they won the World Series. The Nationals in 2019 were not that good. They had no depth at all. They were carried by like 10 dudes. I mean, if you look at their offense, it was like the front half of the lineup had to do all the damage. Corbin, Strasburg, and Scherzer had to carry the pitching staff, including the bullpen, in front of Daniel Hudson, and they won the World Series. So the Padres are absolutely a World Series contender. They absolutely could get bounced in the wild card round. So we'll see how it goes, but they have the pieces that they could make a run.
Well, that's when we will talk to you next, coming up into the postseason. 2 months to go. Are you going to be able to head out to any ballparks, go see any games before the postseason? Anything on the on the books?
Well, yeah, Cincinnati's closest, and I'm gonna check their schedule and see if anybody's like fighting for a wild card berth when they go to Cincinnati. So at least I could see that. Obviously, the Reds aren't going to be in any important games on their own. Maybe I'll see a Cardinals game at Cincinnati if it's going down to the wire. Cardinals and Brewers. Again, I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but if the Reds have a homestand where they're like hosting the Brewers, then hosting the Cardinals, I'll go to several of those games, but maybe we'll see.
All right, Matt, we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Have a good one.